So where did the idea for the Outer Worlds come from?
One of the owners gave us a 3-word sentence to get us started. Fallout meets Firefly. And then I said, I need Leonard.
That was the response?
Yes.
That's right, because he didn't work at the studio yet.
That's right.
No, Tim dragged me over here, forced them to hire me to do this.
And then we pretty much took that as meaning, okay, make a RPG like Fallout, with the similar mechanical structure, but set the storyline somewhere out in space. Maybe give the player a spaceship, throw in some bad guys.
A little bit of Western flavor, a little bit of grunge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really love like True Grit and Deadwood and stuff like that. So I was really intrigued with, and Firefly, really kind of, how we could approach language a little bit differently and not just have it sound like you're talking to people you could run into down the street. And then Tim immediately started to get to work on all his favorite silly corporate ideas.
Very Futurama.
Yeah. A little bit of Simpsons thrown in there as well, of course.
I didn't know about the humor. When I was working on the project, I was on Deadfire at the time, and I heard you guys were that pitch with Fallout meets Firefly, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. But I didn't know about the humor until I came onto the project, and you were like, hey, watch the movie Brazil, and make sure you're familiar with Futurama and all this stuff, which was a nice added element. And I saw the prototype that you guys had put together, the walkthrough with the really big interior back in the day, the scale of it and stuff.
Oh, the water treatment plant?
Yeah, and it reminded me kind of BioShock, which is one of my favorite games. So that's why I was like, one of the reasons I was really like, please get me on this project. And I had to go kind of bribe a few people to get over here. But yeah.
That money never made it to us. You're going to have to go complain to HR. Sometimes even people in the industry think that, an unlimited time and an unlimited budget would be a fantastic thing. It is not. Restrictions and constraints are actually a great way to be very creative or to force you to be creative and to force you to move things forward. If you don't have time to really or an abundance of time to second guess yourself and just be like, okay, I have to keep moving forward. But if you felt like you had a bunch of extra time, you'd probably really try to noodle things and make sure it's perfect and make sure you've got the perfect story in place and the perfect game mechanics.
I think there's just too many possibilities. So it's like if someone gave you a blank page and was like, make something cool, and it's like, okay, you could spin off in a million different directions, but if someone gives you a pointed, like, we need this person to be an information broker and they are a recluse that lives in a tower and blah, blah, all of a sudden you have like, okay, within this, boundary, I'm going to make something interesting that meets all these goals. And I think the same when they asked you like, hey, can you do Fallout meets Firefly? That's much easier to work with than if they just said, can you just make us a game, any game? What could it be?
Yeah.
So when I said make a robot though, and he spouts cleaning slogans,
I was like,
that was
okay.
awesome for you because it honed your creativity into a laser.
Yeah, and I do think that if there's not enough time for a lot of second guessing, it's good. Obviously, you want to iterate. You want to be able to polish your work. You want to be able to change direction if it's not going well. But I think being forced to, whether you're writing, just get words down on paper, or making a game, just actually start developing content is the best way to go. Now, granted, there is that sweet spot that we were we were kind of on the low end where you do have enough time and enough resources to make it. But no matter how much time and money you were given, you would always end up having to cut later. I guarantee it. I don't think that there's any game in the world that hasn't had to end up
I also think you have
content.
to have a balance of giving people enough constraints that like, okay, they have something they can work towards, but not being so paint by numbers that you just turn your person into like, a cog, right? Like you're hiring really smart, talented people. So you want to like be like, unleash them a little bit, or like enable their creativity.
But I think some of the coolest stuff that we've done over the years has actually come out of constraints. Trying to kind of have enough pressure, enough constraints to kind of foster that kind of creativity and that thinking about how can we do this in an economical way, how can we do this in an effective way is really good. But then, of course, there's the opposite problem of just not having enough time or not having enough technology or enough time to put into the technology to get the stuff done, or the fact that we ended up writing a whole bunch of stuff instead of showing it because of the animation cost and the time it would take to develop that stuff.
I want to amend that. I think our best and most stressful work has been when we've had less time and less budget.
Yeah.
But I think there's a different kind of stress that comes from having too much. I think the expectations,
Yeah.
if you're handed like, here's several $100 million to make me the most perfect game ever, is you get a lot of people
And it's a
weighing
blank
in.
page.
Yeah, you got a lot of people weighing in on choices you're making at that point.
That's true.